And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another week, another edition here of the PondCast. The PondCast episode 60. I'm, of course, host VIP. With me, I'm joined by Kuro, of course, behind the scenes, handling the production, and the amazing people in the chat as well. Welcome, one and all, to our weekly catch-up show, where we go through all things StarCraft. Again, there's been a lot going on, as always, in regards to StarCraft, and we may as well jump right on in. First things first is something that caught me off guard. I was not entirely aware as to how many interviews there were going to be, as to when they were going to be. I know that Zombrigub did go on vacation for a bit, went to Japan, went to Korea, came back, time has passed, EWC occurred. I double checking, when was the last time a GLHF interview was posted? Before this one, 3 months ago. It's been 3 months. So I think we all just assumed they were all done. I think it was done, it was complete, but apparently not. So again, there have been other things occurring, and I'm sure there's been delays in some of the production, but thankfully we are back. Again, I'm not entirely certain as to how many more there are going to be, but this is another interview conducted at Home Story Cup. You can tell due to the scenario, due to the couches that they're on. Seats are on, or branded Home Story Cup, and there was a lovely interview with MaNa. It was great to hear from MaNa once again. Just to kind of go over it for those that maybe have forgotten or maybe hearing it for the first time, Zombrigub did create an initiative quite some time ago, did crowdfund for a documentary regarding StarCraft, regarding StarCraft Brood War, its rise, and is stated to be GLHF StarCraft Esports Legacy. That is going to be the eventual documentary, but did actually fly to Korea, did fly to Europe, did go to Home Story Cup to conduct all of these interviews, and has been releasing them on a semi-regular basis. Was on a regular basis, then, as I mentioned, it's been 3 months, and now it looks like back on track. It looks like more interviews are being released, and now we have one featuring MaNa. It was quite a lengthy interview. A lot was discussed. They went through the history of MaNa. They began with MaNa's Brood War, with how he got into gaming, got into StarCraft, got into Brood War, and got into the Brood War competitive scene. It was really cool to hear. Once again, it's one of those things where I feel like we hear less about this era of StarCraft, and there's a lot about, this time that I feel like we're a little bit not privy to, or at least I'm not privy to. So it's great to hear from MaNa's experiences, from his journey, from his memories, from his rise to prominence. He was talking about how he was one of the best players in Poland in Brood War. Not the best, but one of the best, as he was kind of rising through the ranks. He spoke about he was like on a B team for a while, then he grew up and got into the A team eventually. He spoke about how Poland was big in Brood War, where Korea was number 1. In his opinion, China was number 2 and Poland was number 3 in regards to like the hierarchy of like other regions and other countries in Brood War, and how many players that dedicated to the esport as well. Spoke about how he would compete in Nation Wars, in Brood War Nation Wars, and represented the team. That was like a big moment for him as well. And yeah, it was just really cool to hear like from this, bygone era of Brood War, of this more foreigner scene. I do wish that they went into it a little bit more in detail. I'm a little bit, I feel like we're a little bit spoiled from the White interview that was not GLHF related, but the White interview we got much earlier, months ago at this point. But there was an interview conducted, a written one, which was so in depth in regards to his journey in esports, and of course everything that happens in Ukraine afterwards as well. I kind of wanted that here. Like I wanted to hear more about MaNa's upbringing and about his time competing in Brood War, and what like training was like. Again, they touched on it a little bit. He spoke about how back in the day in Brood War, there was even an era where there was no ladder, where there was pre-IC Cup, that there was no like ladder, and it was actually difficult to practice and difficult to really improve. And again, I would have appreciated to have heard a little bit more about that kind of era in StarCraft, about how they improved, about what the friend group was like, and what the scene was like as well, in Poland in regards to Brood War. I feel like there's a lot of content to mine there, and it feels like we touched the surface. It feels like it feels like we kind of like touched on it and then kind of moved on instead. A lot of the interview was based more around StarCraft 2, was based around his time in Wings of Liberty, then of course in Heart of the Swarm and Legacy thereafter, speaking about like some of his big standout moments in his career and how it was getting into StarCraft 2 as well. Something that I found really interesting was that he spoke about how when the beta was out for StarCraft 2, he was still competing in Brood War, but he stopped practicing Brood War, right? He was still competing, but stopped practicing Brood War because it was focusing on the SE2 beta. And he was talking about how despite not practicing Brood War, he was actually getting better results and improving in his competitions in Brood War because of like him playing SE2, like his speed, his mechanics, but also some strategies as well were also kind of like that he was experimenting thing also kind of like crossed over as well. He spoke about how like because he was working a lot with War Prisms and War Prism Harass and War Prism Aggression in StarCraft 2, then when he started playing Brood War, then he started doing the same thing with shuttles, and he said how he'd never done that before. Like he'd never like really fixated or focused too much on like shuttle harass and shuttle drop play, but after he started doing it in SE2, they started doing it in Brood War, and he actually got better results, and he was actually improving in Brood War as well, which was definitely interesting to hear. And again, like it's these little tidbits that I'm kind of like looking for here. So it was great to hear once again from MaNa. He was also he was asked about the other top players in Brood War at the time. I think he was asked about like the American players, and he was comparing them. And I think he brought up like Idra, he brought up Artosis, and he said that they were both very similar in the sense that they both got angry very easily. He was talking about the Idra rage and the Artosis rage when they were competing in Brood War. He had some fun stories about how when they were competing, he would often beat Artosis with like some more cheeky builds and tricky strategies, and Artosis would always get upset at him and always get angry. Like it was and things have not changed over time when it came to Dan. It had not changed at all, But yeah, it was just some fun little stories from that era. He gave kind of like a brief overview about the era of Wings of Liberty as well, the era of Heart of the Swarm. Unfortunately, there were certain things that he couldn't quite remember. He was like, it's been so long, like I can't recall like exact details upon certain things. So we heard more generalities. He actually briefly spoke on the infamous MaNa versus Firecake match, which was the infamous like longest game in StarCraft 2, like over 3 hours, over 3 hour long game. He spoke about how apparently at the time his brother was visiting him, and his brother, like an hour in, came into the room and was laughing at him that he was still playing that same game, and then he left the room. He came back like 2 hours later, and MaNa was still in the same game, and his brother was just giving him crap. Was just laughing at the fact that he's still in the same game like for 3 hours. And MaNa, he was talking about how after he lost, of course, MaNa, he lost that game. He ended up losing that game, losing that series. It was an important one as well. It was during WCS Challenger at the time. He spoke about how after the series ended, he was just so exhausted. He was so exhausted and so frustrated, and he was not he was not in a good mindset. And that wasn't the end of the Challenger event, by the way. Like he then got knocked down to the lower bracket where he had to play another series, and he played against a player that he's favored against. But because like he was so drained and so exhausted and so just mentally like just out of it after that Firecake series, he ended up losing like 2-0 against a player that he would have been favored against, but like he was just done. there was just nothing left. There was nothing left for MaNa. He was out of MaNa. Oh no. So it was interesting to hear these insights from events in StarCraft that we otherwise didn't know about. He spoke about some of his more memorable moments, and of course he had to bring up the WCS event that was in Poland. I think it was in Poland, in Krakow. Speaking about the moment when it was relatively recently. I think it was in 2015. 2015-ish era of StarCraft, when the event was in Poland, and he went out and the people from the crowd like came on stage after he won the series and lifted him up in the air.
Fun fact: I can confirm that this is exactly what happens. It was like September-ish of 2015, because I was there actually in the audience, and indeed the entire crowd, like all the like networks people and stuff, they're extremely hyped people, and they just ran to stage. Like the security was like a little bit confused, not entirely sure what to do with that because it seemed, like everybody was happy with it. But yeah, it was a very spontaneous moment, to put it that way.
Yeah, it was fun to hear from MaNa because he was like, the one thing I was thinking when they lifted me up was I was scared my phone was going to fall out of my pocket.
Yes.
he was terrified, but they lifted him up and it was, yeah. I mean, again, I was bringing it up when talking about MaNa. I mean, not that scene. If you recall, I always bring up the moment where he won his series and then his girlfriend was on stage and they're hugging and the camera panned around them. Like that was like for me, that was like the moment. But same event, right? Same event regardless.
Yes. It was also,
same tournament.
It was also the same event when they first showed the trailer for Legacy of the Void. Because they also mentioned that in this interview. And I can confirm that was a really impressive showing. When you were sitting there in the audience and watching the trailer for the next expansion, I had literal chills, not gonna lie. I will remember that moment forever.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting to hear that that even though like there were some other maybe bigger events where he had performed better results wise or even won, like that was like a big like momentous moment for him, and 100% like that's always burned into my mind as one of the big events from not just for MaNa but in general in the history of StarCraft. It was amazing to see. And it was a nice trip down memory lane. He spoke about his series against his finals against Serral, where he was also in a better position. He was winning 2-1, and then things kind of momentum swung away from him, and so he felt some regrets there. He had some thoughts about Serral, about Clem and their rise to kind of strengthen StarCraft in the European scene as well. It was just a nice kind of like trip down memory lane sort of thing. And again, it was very general, very broad in terms of what they covered, all the eras of StarCraft, a little bit in each place. I do recommend checking out the interview itself, as again, they did discuss so much. Other things that they spoke about were, I mean, they kind of reminisced over old maps and Wings, and he spoke about how like he doesn't envy them at all, like like the old maps. They were not there was kind of less standardization going on, and they weren't the most balanced of maps either. And kind of how good we have it now in certain aspects, of course, not in others. And it was great to hear from MaNa once again. As I mentioned before, like he's been around for a very long time. He's one of those players that's still active. That's maybe the oldest active player, one of the oldest active players out there, in the sense that length of time that he's been engrossed in the scene. He's been there since the beginning, and I feel like there's just a lot to ask him about, a lot to gather as well. So as it is with a lot of these GLHF interviews, I kind of wish that we had a little bit more. That's my only added tidbit to it. But regardless, it was great to hear from MaNa nonetheless, and I look forward to the eventual conclusion of the GLHF like kind of documentary series and what it all comes into as well. I know that a lot of it's going to be a lot of work. I know Zombergub has been very vocal about it, about looking for an editor, and because right now these are just kind of like raw interviews that are being released. This is not the documentary at all. Like everything still has to be edited together into a final piece, and a story and a narrative has to be told through that as well. It's going to be a lot of work, a lot of hard work, a lot of writing is going to be involved in regards to constructing said narrative, constructing said script. It's going to be quite a challenge, but best of luck. Best of luck to Zombie Girl. Share my papi, share my. Of course. There were some interesting things that he spoke about, how when he was getting into StarCraft 2, he spoke about how like he didn't really look up to anyone. Like he wanted to be like the pioneer, and he wanted to like be the one that people would look up to as well. Like it was really cool to hear a lot of the insights from MaNa. Always. Very quickly before we wrap up on this, the one thing that stuck with me was he had one regret in his career of StarCraft, is that he never qualified for IM Katowice. Despite it being a big event and being in Poland, it's something that he never was able to compete in, and never able to take part in, and that's one of his regrets. And I definitely do feel for him. At least he was able to compete in Krakow. True, he was able to. But unfortunately not able to compete in Katowice, especially with IM Katowice moving on from IM Katowice to IM Krakow. Like it is a bit of a shame that never occurred. But again, there's always a chance that more events occur, and we all know that like the esport event, I say esport events, we all know that like there's more tournaments that are occurring in Poland, thanks to Geralt, thanks to those working behind the scenes at House as well, or there's making events at House. So I'm sure I hope at least there's going to be more opportunities for MaNa to kind of be in front of the Polish crowd and be in front of everyone. So best of luck. Best of luck to MaNa as his career continues, of course. And actually, this is also one of the things where, I mean, this interview was conducted a couple of months ago, where it would have been nice to have heard from MaNa about his recent rise, right? Like, we speak about it all the time nowadays, how MaNa, unironically, he's one of the best Protoss players in Europe, and he has gotten so much better in recent times. A lot of that is because of his stint in Stormgate. We spoke about how he was very, very much so ingrained in Stormgate when, like, the alpha was out and when a lot of tournaments were running. This was like a year and a half ago at this point, and he was streaming, he was making a lot of content, and as Stormgate died down, that's when he like dove headfirst into StarCraft 2, and he started getting better and better results, like beating players like Clem, beating players like MaxPax. Like, it's insane, like the results we've been getting from MaNa over the past year, over the past 12 months. It would have been nice to have heard about that, heard from that as well, but maybe next time. But regardless, again, I do recommend checking out the video on MaNa from the GLHF series, and that leads us into our next bit of news. This one a little bit more unfortunate. There was a bit of, I don't know if I want to say controversy, but it was a little bit shaky in regards to this announcement, because it was announced and it was retracted, then announced again, then retracted. Like, it was a little bit messy. It was a little bit messy behind the scenes. But regardless, Hero has confirmed that he has left Twisted Minds. Originally, he actually posted this, and then the tweet was removed because it sounds like Hero had jumped the gun, and Hero maybe assumed that they weren't going to re-sign him, but it looks like maybe they were still like in negotiations regarding things, or that the things were still like not necessarily solid or set in stone. But now we have confirmation. Hero has left Twisted Minds, and he is, of course, still looking for a team. And a bit of a teaser to that, which would be kind of crazy, and I don't know how I feel about it as much. But apparently, the owner of Streamer Zone did respond to that tweet with some eyes. He's looking. he's looking at it back. Yeah. Streamer Zone, we have spoken about this before, how they've been very ambitious in regards to the size of their team. They've signed a lot of players already, and they're also going to be running a tournament in the near future as well. They've announced, it's like a teaser announcement in regards to running more events in StarCraft 2. This is great and all. Picking up a player like Hero, that's also not very cheap. I'm always a little bit concerned. I'm always a little bit tentative about, a team coming in like this and spending too much money too quickly. So I'm a little bit concerned in regards to that. Regardless, it is exciting, and all power to Streamers. And if they do pick up Hero, I just hope they're a little bit tempered, just because there's just a lot coming, a lot on the horizon, and I hope they're able to facilitate for all of that, of course. So we'll see if Hero does get picked up by Streamer Zone. We'll see if that does happen. Regardless, I wish the best to Hero in regards to looking for a new team, for sure. Do wish him the best, as he is now a free agent. That leads us into the RSL, the Revival StarCraft League. Of course, the qualifiers did already conclude. We covered that a couple of weeks ago. We actually casted them on our channel, of course, and we have a lot of updates. Now, last week, I think we confirmed the final players just because the fan vote, right? Last week, we confirmed the fan vote, who would be added to the event itself. Now we have more votes coming in. I say fan vote, really it's the Patreon vote. The Patreon votes have come in regards to the players and in regards to the map pool as well. So we do have a custom map pool for the tournament. We do have Leylines, Magnatha, Persephone, Killswitch, Ultralove, Tokamak, Cenotaph, Botanical, and Evil Heart as well. I'm a little bit torn. The reason why I'm a little bit torn here, this was the big criticism that they had last season as well, and I was hoping that they would take note of it. They haven't really. So it's really cool that they've added some new maps. Some of them are maps that we are very familiar with, like Killswitch. Killswitch was a TLMC 20 map, and we actually played a lot of tournaments on Killswitch as well. The other three, I believe, are going to be TLMC 21 maps that have yet to be featured and yet to be showcased. So really cool to see them added as well. Now, the criticism that was levied to RSL last season was that the problem with adding these maps is that what they removed were the least played maps. They removed the least played maps, and they replaced the least played maps with new maps, which means they'll still be the least played maps. the problem here is that it's cool that they're switching of the map pool, but because of how they're switching of the map pool, these maps, there's a lower chance that they're actually going to be used, as opposed to if they got rid of ley lines, if they got rid of Persephone, if they got rid of Ultra Love, if they got rid of some of the more standard, normal, common maps. Instead, then there's, you know, a little bit more fun there, because then there's a higher chance of some of these new maps actually being played. Otherwise, it feels like this is almost like otherwise it feels like it doesn't really matter. It's like, hey, cool, they're going to be featuring these new maps, but the players aren't going to play on them if you're going to give them quote unquote more comfortable options. So that is the one thing here. In longer series, this is going to come into play, but I feel like only longer series. So for best of threes, I don't see players playing on either Heart Botanical or Center Path, unfortunately, or Center Tath, I should say. So I champion them adding some new maps to the map pool. Yes, I disagree with how it's done. I understand that they also want to accommodate the players, right? Like, I'm sure the players, if you got rid of ley lines, Persephone, and Ultra Love, I'm sure the players would be pretty upset, or maybe not. You know, maybe we're like overcorrecting, and maybe we're like babying the players. But the feeling there would be that they would be unhappy with the standard maps being removed. On the other hand, like, if you leave them, that's all they're going to play on. So so it's personally, I'm not too fond of how this has been done, but regardless, I just saw that Patches just actually said something similar. He says a little sad to see Ultra Love and Ley Lines still in, despite the fact that Ultra Love and Ley Lines, they've been around for 2 seasons now. This is their 2nd season that Ley Lines and Ultra Love have been around. Get rid of them. get him out of here, Pappy. Get him out of here. So that is a little bit unfortunate. Regardless, I'm sure the event is going to be a lot of fun, and I hope that we get to see some of the newer maps. And when I say newer maps, I don't mean Kill Switch. Like, Kill Switch also feels like a comfortable map just because players have experience on that. I want to see some of the other TLMC maps, the newer ones. Whether or not we do in shorter series, I doubt we will, but I hope we do. The other big announcement in regards to RSL is we have a return of a big sponsor or a partner, Archon Studio. Now, once again, in regards to a bit of criticism here in regards to RSL, for the first season of RSL, we also had this partnership, and I was hoping that they would make content around this, right? For those that are curious, Archon Studio, they're making a StarCraft tabletop miniatures game, and they're making a lot of miniatures, and there's already a lot of, I think it was already like some examples of that out there. There's already a lot of information of that out there. This is a studio that has already established themselves as having history creating other miniatures games as well, with some mixed success, but with success nonetheless. And I think it would be really cool if they were able to have like a segment on the show which actually showcase these miniatures, or even have some of the players play the miniatures game, right? Like, I think this is a really, really good opportunity to actually do something with this, instead of just having them as a partner, having them as a sponsor. I feel like there's more you can do there, and I hope they take advantage of that. I hope they do something with this partnership. They didn't do so in season 1. I hope they do so here in season 2. Even like in an After Dark episode, have them play it, or mess around with it, or paint the miniatures. Like, do something with it, instead of just having them there. Like, I hope that they're able to be more interactive and more interactive, and just show us more with this partnership, instead of it just being like an added bonus to the prize pool. And benefit the studio and promote the game, of course. Promote the miniatures game. That's the purpose. That's the goal. At least I would hope so. So we'll see. We'll see if they if they do anything with said partnership, and how they decide to promote the miniatures game. Again, I do feel like there are really nice ways, really cool ways to promote the miniatures game. Hope they do actually make use of that. Speaking of RSL After Dark, they did actually host an After Dark show with Ziggy and Gemini of the group drawings. So earlier we already had confirmation of the players that were taking part in the event. Now we have the groups drawn, and the groups confirmed as well. All done live. All done and all released in VOD format on the YouTube channel here in RSL After Dark episode 4. So quickly going through the groups here, we have Group A. We have a group of TVP, a group of Terra vs Protoss. We have nothing but Koreans here as well. We have Cure, Bunny, Creator, and Zhao. We have a pretty interesting lineup here. We have not seen much from Bunny as of late, unfortunately. He has been less active in regards to online tournaments and online results. So Bunny is a little bit more of a dark horse coming into this, but he was also a dark horse at the start of the year as well, because he was also one of the players that wasn't active. Like, there are some grinders out there, like Cure, like Byun, like Hero, like Classic, that play in everything, in all these online tournaments and all these invitationals. They're playing in everything they can. There are other players where it feels like they're a little bit more part-time. Bunny is one of them, where he doesn't necessarily play in like every, or maybe like he plays in once a month in like a Woody TV Monday, or once a month in like a Pigastar Cup, or once a month in or once a year in STC, or like, he's you very rarely see him. I think partly because like he's dedicating a little bit less time focusing on other things, but because that it's a little bit harder to gauge his skill. I'm a big Bunny fan. I want to see more of him. I wish him the best, but because we've seen less of him, I do feel like he's a little bit more rough around the edges, and I'd lean towards Cure and Creator making it through. I say Cure and Creator because Creator is also one of those grinders. Zhao is also not as extreme as Bunny, but he's like maybe in between like a Bunny and a Creator. Zhao, he also doesn't play in too much. Plays in a little bit. He's more active than Bunny, but again, he's not necessarily as intent on playing in everything that he can. Like a Cure, like a Creator, like a Byun, for example. So best and wish him the best, of course. I mean, I would say it's hard to call between like between Creator and Zhao. I think Cure should make it through. Creator and Zhao, it's a little bit more harder to call. And again, I'm always wishing the best to Bunny. Meanwhile, Group B. Scrolling on over here to Group B, we do have a a group of ZVP, Rainer, Estrella, SOS, and Classic. Oh my god, that's Jesus. This is when Rainer he decides to off race his Protoss and play nothing but PvP. That'll be amazing. We know he has it in him. But interesting lineup here. It is great to see some foreigner representation for sure. Rainer, he should be coming in as one of the favorites to make it out of the group. I say one of the favorites to make it out. I guess similarly to Bunny, Rainer also doesn't compete in too much, but the difference is that Rainer, what has he been doing? He's been playing a little League. If you check out Twitch recently, I think it was like yesterday even. Yesterday we were gonna raid. I was checking who was live. I was like, oh, Rainer's live. I check. He's like, oh, he's in the Rift. It's been in the Rift for quite some time. So Rainer has been, off by his own playing League of Legends. He's been playing less StarCraft, so it's hard to say the form that he's currently in coming into the off season. Classic is in form. Like Classic, he's one of those grinders. Like Classic, he plays in everything. He plays in everything he can. He's also playing a lot in StarCraft Evolution as well. Classic is still in form even post EWC, so Classic is coming in as a heavy favorite. The other players have been less active, so it's harder to kind of judge and harder to rate them amongst themselves. Between Rainer, Estrella, SOS, I still do give it to Rainer just because when he is in form, like he is favored there, even if he's a little bit rusty, like he's still favored to make it through. Estrella, I feel like this is an unfortunate group. In current meta, I feel like Estrella's best matchup is PVT. Like he has had some really strong results in Protoss versus Terran matchups. I would maybe even favor Estrella against like Gumiho, against Cure, against Bunny, against these other big Korean Terrans. Unfortunately, there's no Korean Terran here for Estrella. He has to rely on his PvP and PvZ. This is where I feel like he's going to be a little bit less in his comfort zone, a little bit weaker here. I wish him the best. I want Estrella to do well, but it's going to be a tough group. It's going to be a tough group here. So wish them all the best. Heading on over to Group C, we do have Gumiho, Cham, Trigger, and Byun. Cham has been getting some crazy results as of late in OC, the playoffs, the mid-season playoffs, and also in the previous season of RSL. I think Cham, he was winning all these crazy ZVZs. I want to say he took some maps off of Serral. Hold on, let me just double check that. Season 1 Cham. Let's have a look here. So Cham, he 2-1 Solar, he 2-0'd Shin. And Cham, he also, in the group stage, he popped off in ZVZ. That is where he surprised everyone, beating Shin and Solar. It was crazy. It was crazy. Here, where are the Zergs? I mean, they're not in the tournament period. We have one Zerg with Rainer in Group B, and we have Shin in Group D. unfortunately, this season in RSL, there are less Zerg players, so Cham, he cannot rely on his EVZ as heavily as he did previously. He popped off last season, was impressive. Unfortunately, it was reliant on a matchup that isn't here. So this is where Cham is going to be looking a little bit weaker. Bjorn, he is very in form. I have to be favoring Bjorn here, and I lean towards Bjorn and Trigger. I'm a big Gumiho fan. I love Gumiho, but currently Trigger has been in better form, Bjorn has been in better form, and Gumiho has been struggling. I think we spoke about this a couple of days ago, or maybe even last week, but Gumiho, he's been having some really rough, specifically TVP results over the past couple of months, actually. It's been very unfortunate. It's been very, very unfortunate here for Gumiho. Quickly double checking here. So in the Water TV Championship, Gumiho, he lost to Hero, he lost to MaNa, he lost to Nightmare, he lost to Jumi, he lost to SOS, he lost to Zaun. He beat Dave Testa, I suppose. He lost to Nightmare again during the Water TV Summer Championship qualifiers. He lost to Showtime. Like, again, he lost to Australia in Picastar Cup. That was last month. Like, again, like, Gumiho has been having a really, really hard time, specifically in TVP, where others have been succeeding. Gumiho has been struggling. I will say partly just because of his playstyle. Gumiho is a very unique player, of course. He's very aggressive. He can be very cheesy at times, but at the same time, he's less consistent. And yeah, he has just been struggling more than players like Bjorn, players like Cure, for example. So I do favor Trigger over Gumiho coming into Group C, but I wish him the best of luck, of course. Wish him the best. Coming into Group D, we do have the final group here. We have Maru, Shin, MaNa, and MaxPax. This is going to be an interesting one. Hey, we were just praising MaNa earlier, if you recall, just praising him for having some crazy results as of late. MaxPax has been looking in form. MaxPax has been working specifically on his PvP. His PvP is looking really good. This is going to be an interesting group here. I think Maru didn't play last season, right? Double checking. Yeah, Maru, he did not play last season. So Maru playing in this season of RSL is, one, really exciting because Maru playing in an online tournament is rare. It's very rare to see Maru in these online tournaments. It happens every now and then, but again, only every now and then. So it's cool to see him again. I've been honest about this. Maru has not been impressing me this year. Not even at DreamHack Dallas. Like DreamHack Dallas, he was playing very... What's the word to use here? He was playing very, not orthodox, predictable. That's it. He's been very predictable. He's been very predictable this year. We said so during DreamHack Dallas. We said so during GSL and during EWC as well, during our coverage of Maru at EWC. That's been my biggest concern about Maru's play, specifically in 2025, post military service, or the military service announcement that was back like in February, March of this year. So in this group, I can see him struggling a little bit. It's hard to call. Like, I can see MaxPax, MaNa, and Shin overcoming him. It depends. When I say predictable, Maru, he's been going for a lot of 2-base all-ins against Protoss. So I feel like he's probably going to 2-base all-in every game against MaNa and MaxPax, I'll be honest there. Like, he does it a lot. Against Shin, likewise, Maru has been doing a lot of 8-Raxes. He's doing a lot of 8-Raxes. That's actually how Maru got eliminated from GSL, is that Solar, we covered it on the channel, if you remember. Solar, he went for 2 blind counters. It was a game, I think it was on Tokamak, where he blind countered Maru's 8-Rax. It was really cool. It was really impressive, but Solar, he shut him down. Likewise, I think game 1, Maru tried to play mech. Or he did play mech, and Solar was able to roach all in him as Maru was getting into mech. So Maru, he tried to mech, and then he tried to 8-Rax. Both times he did lose to Solar. Again, that was in GSL. Now, that is more of a preparation-based format, but I say that's also applicable here, where these players do have a week to prepare for their opponents. So I'm curious to see how Shin performs. I'm really curious to see how Shin handles Maru's mech and how Shin handles Maru's 8-Rax as well. In my mind, that's probably what's going to happen, but we'll find out. We'll see if that's what Maru does, or if he does broaden things a little bit more coming into the off-season. I want to believe he will. I want to believe he will, for sure. But best of luck. So because I feel like Group D has the most variance, I'll be honest. I can see anything happening in Group D. Like Maru, Shin, MaNa, MaxPax. Group D, in my mind, might be the group of death as well. It might be. Just because for the other groups, I feel like there's more of a clearer, like, weaker link in Group B, in Group C, and in Group A as well. Like, I feel like there's... maybe Group A is also very close. Maybe Group A is also very close. But for Group D, I feel like... yeah, there could be any kind of mixture of players making it out of the group in top two places. So best of luck. Best of luck to all the players. Again, this is going to be in another week's time. Another week's time is going to be RSL. When it comes to our coverage, we'll have to double check, of course, but I believe they are open to co-streaming. We don't really have plans to co-stream the group stage, but we do have plans to co-stream the playoff bracket. So once we get to the playoffs, we will be co-streaming. We decided not to co-stream last season, but this season, now we have a little bit more free time. Now we're going to be most likely stepping in and co-streaming. That's going to be the plan here on the CranKy Ducklings. Meanwhile, our next big event that is around the corner here is going to be the Stellarfest. Stellarfest teaser trailer was released. Interesting teaser trailer. It's a bunch of stock footage of Canada, a city in Canada, of Ottawa even. And there is a big event announced, a StarCraft 2 event announced here for Ottawa. How it turns out, qualifiers, I don't know if there are many details regarding this yet, but Ursa TV is stepping in to organize an offline LAN event. Bold move here, Ursa, bold move. For those that are curious, Ursa TV, he already has some experience when it comes to organizing tournaments. If you remember, he originally partnered with Stegosaurus. With Stegosaurus, if you remember, it was the Ursasaurus Cup. Before Pig came in as the main sponsor, and we had the Pigasaur Cup. Before that, it was the Ursasaurus Cup, which was Ursa TV and Stegosaurus partnered, and Ursa was the main sponsor. He sponsored, was it like 5 weeklies? I want to say it was like 5 weeklies or so, and then he stepped away as a sponsor, and then it was just the Stegosaurus Cup, and then for a couple of weeks, and then Pig eventually stepped in as a main sponsor. I think Stegosaurus was looking for sponsors, was looking for people to boost the prize pool, provide money for the prize pool, and eventually Pig stepped in as that main sponsor. I think there are some people that don't know that, and they assume like Pig organized the event, or he admins the event, or he runs the event. That's not the case. Pig is a sponsor, and Pig, he was not always a sponsor. Before that, it was the Stegosaurus Cup, and before that, it was the Ursasaurus Cup as well. So he's already, so I should say, the person organizing this event, he's already had some experience with that when it comes to running tournaments. He helped fund the Ursasaurus Cup, but also he did I think it was the Ursa Brawl, where he partnered with Steadfast. I think Steadfast was the main caster, and Ursa, he funded a bunch of show matches. Some like fun, like 2v2, 3v3 sort of stuff, some FFAs, I think, as well. But I want to say the Ursa Brawl is the other kind of big thing that he worked on. And if you want to know a little bit more about Ursa TV, he was actually interviewed. He was interviewed by Zombergum. I think there's a GLHF interview with Ursa TV as he was at Home Story Cup. I think it's one of the Home Story Cup interviews. And I don't think Zombergub actually knew who Ursa was at the time. If you remember, that's what I brought up to Yaku, and that was one of our criticisms, was it looked like Zombergub was interviewing Ursa more like a fan, and didn't realize that Ursa already like had dipped his toes into organizing tournaments and was kind of like a bigger force in the StarCraft scene. I don't think Zombergub was actually aware of that. So the questions were not kind of regarding that at all. Like the questions that were a little bit more general in regards to talking to a fan sort of thing. And we found out that he was like a big fan of Shopify, for example. But yeah, with that, it's really cool to see that he's running a tournament. Wish him the best. It is not easy to run a big offline event, and I hope it goes well. I hope he's able to. I think we spoke about this last week in regards to how to run a tournament, and we were levying a little bit of criticism to Ozcraft about how important it is to work with the scene and the talent in your area. I hope that Ursa does something like that, where he's able to reach out to the content creators and to the other personalities in the North American region to have them help work together and promote the event and work at the event and spread news and spread hype. I do think that's quite important to kind of to make use of that, to make use of the already established kind of like people in the area, something that Ozcraft kind of like failed to do. Likewise, I spoke about Cheesedelphia, how it's important, I feel like, for them to do the same thing. I think Cheesedelphia did a better job recently because they had Dave Testa, they had Tempo, like they did communicate with some of the other NA talent, but I think it is important to work with as much of that as you can to kind of spread the word, to let people know that, hey, there's an offline event happening in Canada, and to have people show up and have people be a part of that, fans, viewers, other creators as well. Like, who's in Canada? Who comes to mind? Is Sal? Is Sal Canadian or is he American? I don't even know. I don't.
So he's Canadian, yes. He did just move.
There you go.
I'm not entirely sure where though.
Yeah. So like in my mind, I'd be like, up a tree, Sal. Reach out to Sal. You know, I think it'd be important if he was involved in some way to help promote the event. Steadfast, Truce. I think Orsay is working with Steadfast. By the way, I think they already have that connection from earlier. But they're probably going to be working for this as well. But Steadfast, he comes to mind when it comes to Canadian talent. I know that No Regret, he's actually still active, like a little bit behind the scenes. Like you see him like lurking about every now and then when it comes to like Twitch chats and Twitch channels. Potentially No Regrets and Jake. I believe he's back in Canada, no longer in Korea. And I'm sure there are others as well that like are kind of like glossing over my mind. Jason, is Jason Canadian as well? Hold on. But yeah, I think it's important to reach out to said local talent and work together. So I hope that initiative is done in some way, and wish us the best. Wishing the best with the Stellarfest. Oh, and that leads us to our last big piece of news as well. It's very unfortunate. It's something that has been happening for quite some time. Actually, we already knew about this, but it was being used in a different way. Essentially, mass reporting. There are some individuals that have been abusing the report function in recent months. Infamously, Cham. Cham, he was mass reported and he was silenced, and he had a really hard time competing in tournaments because of that fact. And he was mass reported because apparently he was practicing and playing 2v2s, and the people that he beat got really upset. And then they did mass reporting and they silenced Cham. I want to say they silenced and targeted other pro players as well. And that's something that just happened. And the players just had to wait it out or make new accounts and compete on different accounts instead to kind of wait that out.
It was worse than that. Not only Cham got muted, he got later suspended right after he played the tournament. So he just couldn't even play the game anymore.
Yeah. So that I think Cham is probably the biggest example of a player being targeted with mass reporting. But now this has been happening to modders and map makers. And what this does is when a modder/map maker is targeted like this, is mass reported, when they get silenced/suspended, then their work, their map or mod that they made in the arcade is removed. So because they get mass reported, then their work gets removed, and then bam, that you can't do anything about it. You can't make use of it. This was done to a lot of map makers, and because of that, if you remember, it was a couple of days ago during the Wardy TV Monday. If you remember, during that cast, we were like, oh, all the maps are gone. We actually couldn't host games on Tokamak, on Maganatha. We couldn't host games on Leylines, on Ultra. We could not host games, and we couldn't run our tournament. We couldn't run. Well, I said we couldn't run a tournament. We couldn't host those games. They were removed. They were removed from the NA server. They were still on Europe. They were still on Korea. It seems that those the maps and the mods in those regions are unaffected because the mass reporting is happening on NA, not on those regions. That's the only reason why they're unaffected. But because that, we had to do a workaround. I say workaround. We actually had to run the Wardy TV Monday this week on the TLMC versions of the maps, which are older versions. So there were some slight differences and slight changes, which is less than ideal. But that's the only option that we had, was to just host the maps on like an older version of the map instead of the latter edition version. Not just that, but because these LE versions of the map were removed, the ladder was broken. The ladder was broken, and a lot of people were trying to, and they actually couldn't ladder because the map was removed from the game. So you just could not ladder on NA. And again, that was this week.
Another important problem with the situation was that because publishing has been disabled and only like select accounts even had access to publishing, if the map was taken down and like the author was either inactive or didn't have access, they couldn't even upload it, even if that was, possible. Like they couldn't upload the map back.
Yeah. So like new accounts had to be made, or like maps had to be given to other parties to like upload on their behalf. So there had to be a bunch of workarounds. This also did affect StarCraft Evolution. So there were mass reports made to those working on SE Evo. So StarCraft Evolution was removed from the arcade. A bunch of the submitted TLMC maps were removed from the arcade, removed from the game. There's just been a lot of targeted mass reports on, again, map makers, modders, players as well. It's just a function that is being abused. And yeah, it's really unfortunate. It's also been, as I mentioned, it's also been affecting tournaments. It's been affecting tournaments. It's affecting people, modders, map makers. I'm sure it's going to be affecting TLMC as well, right? The Team Liquid map contest is also around the corner. It's important that we have access to those maps so we can judge them, so we can see them, so we can make use of them as well. And yeah, it's been something that's been plaguing the scene for a couple of months, but it's escalated to the point where now it's affecting more than just individual players. It's affecting a greater portion of the community, a greater portion of the scene as well. In regards to
as a note, it has been reported that Blizzard is slowly restoring access to the maps and the users. But the problem of the situation is that like the takedowns are outpacing the restoring essentially. So if it continues, it may be like a big problem.
Yeah, so I was just about to get into that. So for those who are curious, Blizzard is aware. Blizzard is aware of the issue. These reports have been made to them, and as Kira just mentioned, they have been working on restoring these maps, on adding them back in. But it looks like currently what Blizzard is working on is more of a band-aid solution, in the sense that they're restoring them, yes, but they're not able to like fix the issue of the match reporting, at least not yet. We're assuming that that's what they're working on. I would think we would all hope that is the case, but right now, like it is at least something that Blizzard is aware of, that Blizzard is trying to work on. Whether they can is I mean, yet to be determined. Like this is still like an ongoing issue. We're still getting ongoing reports as to what's happening, but this is something that's kind of plaguing the SC2 arcade on NA. So if you're out there, if you happen to be playing on the arcade, and if you're like, hey, why is like, I don't know, Direct Strike down, or SEVO's down, or Mono Battles is down, and I can't play on this. This would be the reason why, just because of this kind of these people that are being mass reported. Or I should say these individuals that are mass reporting like targeted people. So yeah, it's with that, there's kind of no other update yet. Again, we'll let you know most likely in the coming weeks. I'm sure we'll get an update eventually, at least I would hope so, just because recently we've been speaking a lot about the future of StarCraft and what that's going to look like, and what patching the game is going to look like as well. We spoke about how in the near future, if there's a world where Blizzard doesn't patch the game, where they don't step in and they don't, specifically I'm referring to balance patches, well, a workaround and a way that we can work moving forward here as a community is that we all can agree on our own balance patch mod. It's something that we've done before. It's something that we can do it again. We've done that with the PTR, to have these PTR versions of the game in the base game, to actually test them, to actually use them to compete and run tournaments on them. That can be done with modding as well. That can be done with future balance patches, right? If Blizzard doesn't patch the game, then the community can patch the game instead. But that's not going to be possible if these mods are being mass reported, if these creators are being mass reported, and if we can't actually make use of the mod. So this actually is pretty important. Like this is an issue that is going to affect the future of StarCraft moving forward. If our band-aid solution, if our current workaround to balancing the game was to create our own patches, create our own mods, well, if mods are no longer safe and secure, then what's going to happen. So it's a rough kind of situation to be in, and I hope that this will be resolved soon, but only time will tell. Time will tell, and yeah, my heart goes out to all those that are being affected, especially with TLMC around the corner, right? Like right now is not the time where map makers want their maps to be taken down, when they're trying to submit it, when they're trying to refine it, when they're trying to work on these maps to make some money, but also to benefit the scene in general. Is the worst time for this to be occurring, essentially. Also, not just that, but also StarCraft Evolution as well, right? They're in the middle of the StarCraft Evolution Championship. They're in the middle of like this big event for their mod. If their mod goes down, and it has been taken down and put back up, and taken down and put back up, like this is going to impact their tournament that they're trying to run. Not just their tournament, but also their ability to just run events in general, because they want to they want to monitor it, they want to balance it, they want to update it. Like they're actively working on this mod. Now a mod that's no longer safe, that's potentially compromised, right? So a really rough position for a lot of modders and map makers to be in. And yeah, it's something that's ongoing, and we'll give you guys some updates when they are available in the coming weeks. Hopefully not too long. With that, we are now wrapping up our news. With that is all the news for the week. Up next, we are going to be going through tournament results. We've had all our weekly tournaments. We've had the Water TV Summer Championship. We have some other modern events as well. We are going to be going on a short break, and when we come back, we will be back with you with the tournament results. We'll see you soon. See you soon after the break.